What is up there, everybody? Citrus Aviation here with another video. Today, we have model aircraft news once again for October 2022. This video is not coming out on the 1st of October as I intended to because of the move to Cleveland. I was driving that day, so unfortunately it did not work out. So, we are now here in Cleveland, working for Commuter as a dispatcher, and we're back with model aircraft news, and we are also back with having guests on the show. So I would like to welcome Red River Aviation to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, certainly. We got a bunch of news to cover today, and first I want to talk about something I actually didn't even put on the outline. The podcast that we had, the Model Aircraft Today podcast. For the podcast, unfortunately, temporarily, the podcasts have been suspended indefinitely. Don't know when those will come back. A lot of it really has to do with my work schedule and just being able to find time to make a podcast along with doing all these videos and such, and doing the work that I have, which can be inconsistent with scheduling, at least for now. It's going to change. I am going to get a consistent schedule, the new SIF bid system that I'm getting used to here with Commuter, to be real nice. But for now, and for the last couple months, it's been so inconsistent that I haven't really been able to do it. So unfortunately, that's been put on hold for now. But Model Aircraft News is back, and eventually I'd love to do both at some point, but at least for now that isn't reasonable or something I can do in my schedule. So that's what happened with that. So, and now we have some more great models. Now we have some candidates for greatest model of the year. We have one that came out recently from Gemini Jets. It's this fantastic Aer Lingus ATR 72-600. Currently operated by Aer Lingus, and Gemini Jets made the model. It looks so neat. Just take a look at that gorgeous model right there. It's got so many amazing features, such as the overly pointed nose and the incorrectly shaped cockpit windows. I think some people also noted that the wheels seem a little bit off on it too. It might be a little bit big, but overall, what a fantastic model that we could definitely qualify for Model of the Year in the third pile.
I like that effort. Just taking a look at this, like you said, cockpit windows are quite awesome, to say the least. Just a nice mold. I mean, there's nothing too much more I can say about it. You know, you got the landing gears as well. The propellers look quite nice, and it's quite a facility. What can I say?
Absolutely. Amazing model right there. With that being said, we do have some mold news. That's really basically it for headlines. It's been actually fairly quiet recently in the model hobby, which, to be honest, is probably a good thing, because that means there's not a whole lot bad going on, because usually when stuff gets in the news, it's negative stuff, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. But we have three molds we want to talk about today. The first is the brand new JC Wings 777-200 LRF interactive mold, which will be in 400 scale. Now, they had this mold in 200 scale, and they've made a ton of models, both from JC Wings and Gemini Jets. But now we have this mold coming out in 400 scale, and JC Wings already announced two models that it'll be on. It'll be on a Qatar 777-200 LRF. It's in a special livery. I believe it's like a FIFA World Cup, or it's one of the... Yep. Yeah, that's the one. And they also did one just announced for a Chinese airline. I forget what the name of the airline is, but it's a really neat livery that they have on it. Both those models should be awesome, but we have no idea when it's going to come out. We don't even have pictures of it. And JC Wings hasn't even made a formal announcement about the mold. They just sort of dropped in release and expect people to find it, which certainly I don't think is the greatest way to market a new product. But still, it should be a good model and really neat when it eventually shows up. Now, eventually, Gemini Jets will start making it too, because they have a co-share agreement with JC Wings. So it should be a neat model, and I'm looking forward to seeing it pop up on some planes. I'd love to see some of those DHL hybrid 777s, and I'd probably get a couple of them. How about you?
Completely agree with that assessment, and I think that this mold really opens up a whole new world for 1 to 400 scale airports in general is really what comes to my mind, because the 747 obviously has been a cornerstone of that, just to make it more realistic and more interactive, like what the name says. But adding 777 is going to be really helpful, and I highly doubt that we're going to be going to narrow bodies anytime soon, but I think it's really cool that we're jumping into these realms, and throw a C-17 with the back door that opens and everything. You got a really realistic interactive airport, and I think it's a really cool element of the the hobby. And while innovation in some regards in the 400 scale can be really iffy, especially in 2022, I do approve of this one. And while I would like to see the mold before I back up that statement, I still think that JC Wings historically has done a very good job in that department. I think they'll do it right here as well. So really good effort from them on that.
Absolutely agree with that. And one thing I'm really interested to see with this is, are they going to have the opening L1 door? Because a 200 scale version has the L1 door. You can have either in a closed or open position. I want to see if they implement that 400 scale, because if they do, that would be so neat. The next mold is the updated CRJ 900 mold. Now, by the time this video comes out, I will have posted my Model Aircraft Talk video where I unboxed the Mesa CRJ 900, which is the second model to use the new mold. And it's a pretty neat mold. Yeah, the antennas are a bit oversized, but overall, the updated CRJ 900 mold is pretty nice, and I do expect to see a re-release of the Delta and American CRJ 900s on this new mold in the not very distant future. It's probably going to be in the next couple of years. I predicted after the whole disaster of those two models coming out that we would get a new release within a year. That didn't happen, but I'm still confident that there is going to be re-released very soon. Usually when they do re-releases like that, it's usually about a 3 or 4 year wait. So maybe we see a new version of those around 2025, but I do think we're going to get them. And the new mold overall is, I think, just adding a couple little pieces to what I think is already an excellent mold when Gemini Jets gets the QC right.
Thorough assessment there as well, and I definitely agree with that. I got the Mesa CRJ myself, and unfortunately I suffered from a loose antenna, which is quite unfortunate, but that's nothing new for Gemini Jets' quality control. So I think that the aerial is definitely helpful. I just think that they need to master it. I wish that it was closer to the size of what NG's antenna was, but I still like that Gemini is trying to innovate. I just unfortunately think like the interactive mold I think is a really good decision, but in terms of antennas the disproportion's so bad. It's hard to love it, but I feel like it's also one of those things that can also grow on somebody, because it is cool to have features on there like that. It's just kind of challenging on a model that's literally 2 inches long. So there's definitely pros and cons to it for sure, but I would say it's probably a positive overall. But maybe in the future Gemini might care enough to work on the proportions there, maybe make it smaller, but that is something that we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. At least right now it looks like they're not going to. I think JC Wings may have released 1 or 2 900s with this mold already, because this mold existed for a little while. It's just Gemini Jets has taken a while to start using it. I think there was, what was it, like a China Southeastern CR9 that was made on that mold?
Sounds about right.
And maybe one other, but it's not been used a whole lot till now. Gemini Jets now done 2 releases with the Lufthansa and the Mesa, and I look forward to seeing more. One detail they did not add was the underside antenna, which Gemini Jets, for whatever reason, seems to be immune to wanting to put antennas on the bottom side of the airplanes, as if they're trying to avoid some virus or something. I don't know. It's weird. But Gemini Jets, at least I like it. I like the move overall. Finally, we have our final mold, which is the new Panda Models Tupolev TU 114 mold. So now some of you may wonder, what is a Tupolev TU 214? Yesterday's Airlines actually had a good article on this, and I'll see if I can put it up on the screen. I'll link it down in the description. But basically, a Tupolev TU 214 is a TU 204 that was made in a different factory, and it has a couple of minor differences, like the R1 door is a full-size door on the TU 214 versus it being a smaller door on the 204. Little differences like that, but overall it's basically the same aircraft that was just built in a different location, and Soviet designed equipment was often given different identifiers based on the factory that built it. So this is one of those cases. Not many were ever built, but it's really kind of an interesting part of history. And so basically all Panda has to do is use the existing TU-204 mold, make a couple of little printing changes, and they call it a brand new mold. So pretty simple for them. And there weren't a whole lot of liveries that had it. They recently produced a couple of them with the Aeroflots from the Soviet era. They made 2 of them. And so they'll probably make a couple more. Not too many 214s out there, but they'll probably do, I think it's about 6 liveries that were on a TU-214. But anyway, pretty neat aircraft and a great addition, I think, to the very increasingly popular Russian aircraft collecting market.
I agree with that as well, and I think that it is a really cool aircraft. I don't know too much about it besides the fact that obviously it's a part of the Tupolev family, but seems like a really cool plane. I'm sure they can do some cool liveries on it, and it's been crazy to see over the last 2 years how fast the Tupolev market's grown. It seems like ever since NG kicked off their family of Tupolevs, that it's been a snowball from there, and it's pretty cool to see. And I think it's quite helpful to expand on these molds after having so many iterations like 737-800 and A320, for instance. So good stuff there, and I think they're going to continue to progress on that in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. It seems like both Panda and NG have been sort of on a race to make as many Russian aircraft molds as they can. So we've got some releases to talk about. And there's 3 that we're going to talk about today. We're going to do the NG September 2022 releases first. And there were some really good ones in here. By the way, at the time that we are recording this video, the hints for the October release just dropped, so it's possible by the time this video goes out that the releases will have already come out. So I do want to preface that real quick. But NG dropped a bunch of models, and they also did something that I personally am starting to get really annoyed by, and that is the future releases. Why do future releases? Why not just wait until the model's ready, then release it? Basically, it's just a cash grab to get people to not buy the potential opposing or competing models. And I should really do a separate video on this because it's really annoying me. But it basically sort of spoils the fun from a lot of releases when you already know it's going to come out. Anyway, that rant aside, there were a ton of great models that came out. Of course, we got the Colorado ones, which a lot of people will be excited about. The personal highlight for me, the Qatar Airways standard livery 777. I will be getting that at some point. Just right now, until really the end of the year, I'm not going to be buying many, if any, models at all. So I'm just going to have to wait on that one. The JetBlue A321s are both really neat. The Mint Tail is a re-release, but they sort of made it kind of special for it being the first one built in the US. And of course, they've done the Balloons Tail A321 now. They also did the 2 Vietnam 7810s, did 4 Condor A330s, and there is an item number missing, which I noted on my article on what'll be the Model Aircraft News website. It's not quite ready yet, as there's a couple of things with the theme that I'm not happy about, so I'm probably going to change the theme before I release it, but mostly the website's actually ready to go. Red River Aviation, you saw the website. What do you think of it so far, just to sort of get people excited for it?
Yeah, I like the efforts. The articles are divvied up nicely, and it has a nice format to it. So, like the ring to it, I think it's a nice flow, and definitely something unique to say the least. So I think it's going to be exciting. There was a nice picture gallery on there to highlight those articles too, so that was also kind of stand out. And there's a lot of different various elements that should be on there, so that's looking pretty good to say the least.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, also, big thing with this release. The Airbus 350-1000 mold appears for the first time, and both the models are going to be bangers. We've seen the pictures of them; they look great. At least the Virgin Atlantic. I don't know if the Airbus with the Qantas Sunrise titles have appeared yet, at least in the pictures of the model. But the Virgin Atlantic looks great. What are your thoughts on this release set?
Yeah, so I have some interesting thoughts that kind of somewhat go against yours, but I agree with some degrees. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the future releases. When I first saw this for the first time, and usually your first impression is your best impression, I was very pleased to see this. Personally, I've been beyond tired of seeing NG models continue to delay models. We had 3 Chinese 737s that got delayed from October of 2020 to April of 2021. That is almost a full year, and I think that is absolutely ridiculous. So if they're going to do this instead of do that, I completely like this decision. Now, yes, I completely agree on the contrary, though, that it'd be great if they just wait till the model was made to release it. But I think the problem with that is when NG models and other companies like Gemini Jets, JC Wings, or whatnot are making these models, sometimes everything gets thrown out of order in all those items, and that can be really challenging for times, especially like with a younger brand NG models probably trying to, you know, the full philosophy on how they work and everything's so much different than a company like Gemini Jets, and I think that's more than understandable. So it's kind of hard to get the inside scoop on what to expect. But with how they do things, I think that if they did this as a future release, I think that would be much more respectable than delaying models over and over and over. It's really funny, though, that they delayed another 5 models from the September release. But with that aside, I still think that the future releases, if this is going to be the new way of them handling not delaying models, is a huge plus, at least for... But yeah, you have the marketing stuff and all that, too. So there's two sides to it, but I still think that that is better than delaying models, at least in my opinion. In terms of the releases, I completely agree. The Southwest were awesome. I'm also very happy about the Qatar 333, and that's going to be a huge plane for the market. I also thought the United 333 came out really nicely, and that's going to be a good model for anybody that's looking for that one. The AirT Nui and the plethora of 787s is also very helpful. This Balloons aircraft is a 321 standard, which is really cool. They did a Neo back in December 2020, so that'll be quite nice for any JetBlue guys looking for that CLT-13. The Prism A321 is also quite helpful, and that'll be a great re-release. I believe that's now our 3rd total release across the 400 scale. And I also thought the American A330 was quite nice, and that'll be really helpful for somebody that's been looking for that if they haven't been able to get one. I'm also really excited for the 2 350s with the Qantas Sunrise livery and also the Virgin Atlantic too. I think that mold's going to be quite nice, so I'm excited for that as well. And then the future releases, again, it's kind of frustrating. I completely agree that it ruins the actual model that's coming out, but at the same time, if they're not going to delay planes, I do see this as a positive for them, and it at least does get people excited to know that, hey, you don't have to go buy Gemini's Tennessee 1 if you want the NG1 and all those different items. So there's a lot of magnitude to this one, I would say, but I would have to say magnitude in terms of good and bad, but I still think that it's quite helpful, at least for a company like this. Like, Gemini has no reason to do it. I think it's kind of stupid, especially when you had to cancel the BA Max pre-order, but that's a whole different conversation for another time. But I will say about this that I think in this connotation it is quite helpful. At least let us know what you guys think in the comments about it. It's definitely a hot topic, but I still think it's quite nice. But excited to see those planes come out. They're quite popular ones in the future release, so those should be pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of great models in here. The Condor 330s, there is one item number that is missing. So 61054 is notably missing from this release. So I assume that is another Condor 330 that was not released in this batch. I don't think it was released previously. I know they've done 2 previous Condor 330 200s. But I think what that means is there is another one coming that has not been put in the set. And I think that's something I mentioned on the website. So anyway, in a future video, I will announce that website when it's fully up and operational. But as of right now, it's not quite ready. The final one we're going to talk about are the new Gemini Jets releases for October 2022. Now, these are in 400 scale, 200 scale, and there's 1/1/72 scale. They do this like one Sporty's pilot shop release every year, which I suspect is one they commission. And if you're into collecting Cessnas, this is one for you, because these are pretty neat. In 200 scale, we are getting the Qatari Retro 777, which means that it's coming 400 scale soon, but that's a neat release. The Frontier A320 Neofighter shows up. The Caribbean Max 8 looks fantastic, at least from the CGI, it looks amazing. We'll have to see how the actual model looks. But of course, that'll be coming out 400 scale too, and the 200 scale version is very nice. I have the Southwest Max 8 and 200 scale, and that mold's really heavy. There's a lot of actual like metal to it. It's a nice, very nice mold. The Airbus 350-1000 shows up here in 200 scale, as well as we get the Orca Max 8 livery, and of course we get the Honor of Those Who Serve in the flaps down version this time. So good stuff from 200 scale. 400 scale, I think that yesterday's airlines kind of actually put it fairly accurately when it was like, well, this is basically a lot of stuff Gemini has already made before, like the Delta 753. It's just 6 753 they've made for Delta. The American Airbus 319S, while the great release, it is a re-release. The Honoring Those Who Serve Alaska 800 has been made better by NG. I have that great model. The Condor A321 has been made by both Phoenix and NG, and both those versions I almost guarantee will be better. The Delta A321 Neo has been made by Panda and NG. Both those versions are better. The Emirates 380 in the Magic livery. This is a re-release of a model they made just a few months ago. Like, what was it, February? I think it was February. Why are they re-releasing the exact same plane? And then, of course, the KLM 744, this technically a re-release. They made this model before, but this is the first time the interactive series, and so I think it's worth picking up for that reason. And, of course, the only two new models of 400 scale we actually get are the Braniff L188, which actually, this one's been made by Aero Classics before, so that's not even new.
It's very
but the United 75,
it's very hard to find.
That is true. So some people will like it for that reason. And the United 753, that is original in the new Evo Blue livery. So the Gemini Jets is one of those companies where they're starting to go back to the same well, where they just keep re-releasing stuff that's working for them, which maybe is really what they should have been doing for a long time anyway. But of course, it does make for some more boring releases. But of course, if you already have these models, that's good for you because you can save money, or if you're a fleet builder, it's great for you because you can buy more. So those are my thoughts on the releases. What are yours?
Yeah, so most of this stuff, like you said, has been released before, but it's still helpful for new collectors that haven't been able to get this in different items like that, and some of these go for expensive prices like I was referencing, so it's very helpful to get some re-releases here. Although I will say, I was really excited for the United 757-300. That's just a really good looking plane in my opinion, and I don't know if you know this, but the United 757-300 in the Continental Global livery is a very hard model to find, and this has been one that hasn't been done for 8 years, so I think this was a really helpful release. And then that Braniff International as well. That's a really helpful plane for retro collectors, and I really appreciate Gemini's retro group that they've had going since circa mid-2021. The rest of these planes, like I said, have all been done before, but it's still helpful to have different iterations. Sometimes I think that they do go a little bit above and beyond, especially when you knew that Alaska was already done by NG, unless they just waited so long and did this model like 3 years ago or something before that and just wanted to wait for that one to sell out. I don't know, I'm just taking a guess on that one. And then yeah, Delta 753 and the full 9 yards on that American 319. So yes, while that is the case, I do feel like we've got some good releases in the past though to kind of balance it out. So this is kind of a hybrid month where it's not horrible, but it's not great. But planes like the Alaska Max from last month, Flagship Valor, even you go to that point. Finally a Frontier A320neo for the first time in 5 years. Mesa CRJ900. This does balance it out and is really helpful. What I am going to say, and what kind of frustrates me, and this is going to be weird coming from a US collector, but I'm super frustrated that there's not more variety in this release. I recently assessed several of the Gemini Jets releases from the past, and some of them just completely blow these out of the water in terms of variety. Guys, we have only 3 international planes in this release, 2 of those being heavies that have been done before. We can do better than that in my opinion, and it's just frustrating to me that people are asking when are we going to get EasyJet 737s, and I don't know, throw out any South American plane that comes to mind. I don't know like what the big ones are, but what I'm trying to say is it's frustrating that we can't get some of these narrow bodies, and I have people from the United Kingdom and Australia and everywhere coming into my comment section asking when are these planes going to get released. So I really vouch for those guys because I feel bad, because it feels like as US collectors we get upset when there's 3 good planes there, but you have to keep in mind that Europe may only get 3 planes per 3 months. You know, it's one of those deals. It's kind of a give and take thing. And I know Gemini Jets catered to the United States and everything, but you would still think that in the past with what they've done previously that they would be able to sector to some other stuff. And there's been better releases than this in the past, but even last month too is a prime example of that, with the best being the Aer Lingus and the British Airways, and I guess you could count the CP Air and Volaris, but that's still North America stuff and it's kind of a similar market. So you go on about that for hours, but I just hope to see some more international planes. So that's kind of my thought though. I know it sounds weird, but I mean it would still be quite helpful. But outside that, still pretty good release, and I think that it'll be helpful for any collector that's looking for those.
Yeah, for sure. The variety thing, my thought's always been Gemini Jets, they are essentially a North American based company first, and so that's really what they focus on. And so I understand the complaints that, you know, people like Moy from Gemini, but really it comes back to the end of the day where that's not really Gemini's main target demographic. If you want, so like the big South American carriers are Avianca, Aeromexico, Copa, Gol, Azul, and Latam. Those are really like the biggest carriers in South America. Well, I guess Volaris to an extent, but my whole thought is that Gemini doesn't necessarily cater to people outside of North America. I mean, unfortunately, that's just sort of the case. They do some stuff outside the US and outside North America, but that's not their target demographic. And so, to be honest, for people who are in Europe, or if you're in like New Zealand or wherever you might be, honestly, looking at brands like NG models or JC Wings or Phoenix models is probably better for you. Just saying it the way it is. But Gemini Jets, for North American market, they've been good for us. And although I would like to see more variety, I just am skeptical that Gemini Jets is going to do it. Although every so often they have like releases which are heavy in either Asian or European stuff, so it does come out fairly often. And obviously one reason why people want this to happen from Gemini Jets because Gemini Jets has the biggest distribution. They make the most models for each release, and they're the most well distributed, so it's a lot easier to get them. So I can see it from that point. But yeah, that's basically it for the releases. So for community news, it's been kind of quiet, and I've kind of wanted to be able to give back to the community in a sense. So we're going to start from here on out. Start with this episode. We're going to highlight one creator that we think deserves a shout out. Please do not ask for shout outs because you will not get them. We give shout outs based on people who we think deserve one. And so we're going to start with someone who's doing great work right now and we think should be highlighted. And his name is Syracuse Aviation. He makes a ton of really neat model airport videos. He does a bunch of airports. He obviously does Syracuse Hancock Airport. He does Detroit Metropolitan Wayne County. That's currently suspended, but it's coming back. And he does a bunch of other airports, a fictional airport. And he's got a neat collection. Great Delta collection. I might mention fantastic Delta collection. And a bunch of other neat models. He's got those JC Wings glass jet bridges, which look so neat. A bunch of great models. He does good videos. And really, we wanted to highlight him because he's doing very good work. Great grind. And we want him to be successful with his YouTube channel. So go check him out. His channel will be linked down in the description.
Absolutely. Anderson's a great friend of mine, and I'm fortunate enough to get to talk to him quite a bit. He's a fantastic guy, and he's just awesome. Great personality, and ultimately, just a great person in general. I feel like that's worth highlighting. You can just tell by how his voice and his enthusiasm, he just drives differently, and you can just see that in his videos, and that's why I love watching them. Fantastic guy, deserves all the praise in the world. Great guy from the Syracuse, New York area, and he's a fantastic guy. Go check him out. Fantastic individual, and very glad that we were able to mention him here.
Yeah, for sure. Go do that. Go check out the creator, and we'll have another one for next month with that applicable reference, and with the podium still open for you for one last chance. Do you have any closing thoughts for today's video?
Yeah, really nice episode today. Glad we were able to get this in, and some really good stuff going on in the community. Been really glad to see it. Lots of consistency. That's what we love to see. And excited for what's to come. We got a big holiday season coming up. I'm sure we're going to get more great releases. And also, one thing that I didn't get to note, but I just thought it was really cool, and I just saw it on some of Syracuse's thumbnails. That flagship Valor Airbus A321 from NG Models is a stunner. Highly recommend picking up that model. Fantastic plane, and ultimately a very good one. But outside of that, fantastic news, and I'm really excited for what's to come. Really good stuff, and it's going to be awesome for many months to come.
Yeah, for sure, certainly. We want to thank you all so much for watching this video. The new Model Aircraft News website is coming up. It should be ready sometime this month, and when it is, there'll be a video about that. So, I would like to thank Red River Aviation for coming on the show. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and God bless you. Peace out.